Hey, this is Tim, and that was, of course, Master of Puppets. I thought, what better way of starting off a discussion about downpicking than with one of the most infamous downpick songs of all time. I played that at 220 beats per minute for you, but if you follow along with this routine that I'm going to share with you today, you'll be practicing along with at that tempo and probably even faster pretty soon. So the routine that I'm going to share takes about 15 minutes to go through, and you don't even have to perform it every day, and I'll get to why in a little bit. But let's just cover the preliminaries for those of you who are a little bit more beginner or just getting into this metal style of playing. Down picking is, just what it implies. Straight chugs, be it on the low E string or whatever, maybe some chord stabs. But the point is you're just playing all consecutive downstrokes, okay? So a lot of preliminary discussion around downpicking begins with string gauge and pick thickness, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time talking about those things because quite honestly, I don't think that it plays a huge factor. Once you can play, once you've learned the technique, you're going to be able to translate that across a wide variety of setups. Just to tell you what I'm using, I've got 10 to 46 on my Kiesel, and I'm using an Ernie Ball Prodigy that's a 2mm pick. Okay, so don't feel that you have to use those though. Like I said, 9 gauge is going to work just fine, or a slightly thinner pick is going to work for just fine too. The only thing in regards to the pick, just make sure you're not holding it anywhere, choke up, and so that you're at the tip. That's going to work best for you. Other than that though, everything is going to come along just fine the more you practice. Now, getting a little bit deeper into technique, I'm sure that there's a million videos out there telling you to hold your pick this way, that way, and do this and do that. But what I'm going to show you is really just what works for me, okay? There's really no two guitar players on earth that pick 100% the same way. So I'm going to show you what works for me, and you can try incorporating that into your practice routine. And if it works for you and helps you out, that's awesome. But if you find yourself gravitating towards maybe a slightly different way of doing it, then that's fine too. Really, as long as you're staying comfortable and, just listening to your body, you're going to arrive at a technique that works for you. So I'm going to play a little riff here. Okay, now let's just analyze my technique. So what I really notice when I'm down picking is it's mostly my thumb that's changing. So when I alternate pick, my thumb is bent a little bit and my pick is twisted going through the strings at an angle, okay? Now, when I down pick fast, my thumb tends to straighten out, okay? So what that does, if you look at the pick angle, that pick angle is changing because my thumb's doing that, right? So if you translate that over to the strings, that means my pick is losing some of that rotation that it had when I was alternate picking, and it's going through the strings at much more of a perpendicular type of motion, 90 degrees to the string, right? So like I said, that's what works for me. Experiment with that and see if that helps you out. The other thing to note is that it's not just a strict straight up and down motion. As I go through the string, that pick is kind of coming out a little bit, making it easier to skip back over the top of the string, right? So it's through the string and out away from the body ever so slightly. So it's not, I just don't want you, if you're really beginning at this technique, to think that it's a straight up and down motion. It's not strictly straight up and down. So with that, I'm going to play this riff again, bring you in nice and close. I'll play it fast first. Okay, and now a little bit slower. Okay, so the other thing to notice there too is that I'm getting the action strictly from my wrist. My elbow is not moving, right? So you want to have that wrist action so that everything stays nice and relaxed and smooth. And the other thing to mention too is elbow placement is key. If it's too far behind the body, you know, if you have it too far back, it's going to cause you to tense up. It doesn't quite feel as nice. So you might want to experiment just where that elbow is, keeping the bones in line and the muscles in line so that everything's working as smooth as possible. Now, continuing on with our discussion of technique, I think a lot of people miss the mark when they say, oh, and make sure you're playing with a relaxed arm, mainly because I think that's pretty obvious that you want to have a relaxed arm. But how do you achieve that relaxed arm? Well, you have to remember that your arm isn't just sitting there in space as an isolated entity, right? It's attached to your body, and your whole body comes into play, even your mind. So we won't get into the psychology of it, but be aware of what your body is doing. Are you just slumped there? Or do you feel good, right? Plant your feet, maybe engage your legs a little bit, engage your abs, try to relax your whole upper body and play with proper technique. And the other thing too is to really focus on your breathing. Breathing plays a large part in how relaxed your whole body is. If you're tense, holding your breath, then your whole body is going to mimic that and tighten up, right? So even if you're playing, let's say, you know, you're playing some Creeping Death, even if you're playing a song that's a quick tempo, you still want to be breathing nice and slow and evenly. Right? So you keep those breaths going slow and evenly and relax the whole body. Don't start tightening up. A lot of people, as soon as that tempo is increasing and they're starting to focus on their arm, then all of a sudden they're holding their breath and they're not even realizing it. And that just causes everything to compound and all the problems get worse, right? So be aware of your whole body, not just your arm. Be aware of your breathing. Now, one other little thing before we get into the routine and the actual exercises is just our down picking, we want it to be as tight and precise as possible, okay? So you know, a lot of the time when you're practicing, you'll get these little up strokes in there, right? It starts sounding a little bit stuttery. So we want to eliminate that obviously as much as possible. And just one tip that I want to touch on is that I very, very often will practice for hours with my guitar unplugged. I'm a big fan of taking something and making it harder than it has to be. And I find that if you unplug your guitar and you're just acoustically in your room, you have to dig in and you have to work harder to make every note sound clean, and you know, you're digging in, playing with some power. And then it makes it easier when you do plug in, and it sounds even better because you're used to digging in and making every note sound so good. So that's something you'll want to consider. I highly recommend it. Your down picking will definitely thank you for it if you can spend a little bit of time just practicing unplugged. Okay, now let's get into the routine itself. And now, like I said, this is going to take you about 15 minutes every time that you do this. Maybe a little bit longer the first couple of times, just as you're getting a handle on it. But, and I don't recommend doing this every day either, because I equate playing the guitar to working out in the gym a lot, and you don't need to go to the gym and work out every muscle every time you go in there, right? So what we're doing when we're really giving a hard workout on that forearm, we're breaking the muscles down and we're teaching them how to rebuild, and you got to give that time to happen. So even if you do this routine every other day or even every third day, you're going to notice good progress, and you're going to avoid those overuse injuries that a lot of people start complaining about, because really you can get an overuse injury. Your elbow could start hurting within even a couple of days of doing this repeatedly. So, you know, tear it down, but make those neural pathways in the brain, get that new muscle memory working, give it a day or two to sink in, come back and do it again. And you're never going to regress. You're not missing out on anything. There's always more stuff you can be practicing, right? So don't feel like you need to be practicing this every day. I actually feel that you'll make better progress if you take breaks and let those muscles fully recover and then attack it again. Okay, so the first exercise, and we're going to approach this as if we were in the gym too. We're going to do reps with it. Okay, so the first exercise is simply just chugging on the low E. Okay, so what you want to do is find a tempo that you can do it nonstop for 30 seconds, okay? Because what we're gonna do is we're going to play nonstop for 30 seconds, take a 30-second break, play nonstop for 30 seconds, take a 30-second break, and we're gonna do that 4 times, okay? So we're gonna do 4 sets of 30 seconds. So our time under tension will be 30 seconds. Okay, now, also get into the habit of writing your progress down. Okay, you don't want to get into a situation where you can't remember what you did the day before or a couple of days ago. You want to be able to look back and say, okay, I practiced that at 160 beats per minute, so let's go up to even 161, right? Progress is progress. It doesn't matter how much, just incrementally increase it. Even if you only went up 1 beat per minute every time that you practiced, if you did it even every other day, it's only going to take you 2 months to go up 30 beats per minute, right? So if you started at 160, you could be at 190 in a matter of 2 months. And if you're down picking all 8 notes at 190, that's pretty good. You know, a couple more months and you're going to be well past 200, and you know, you're going to have a lot to show for practicing smart and efficiently. Okay, so that's step number 1. We're just going to do that. So your practice routine to start with is going to look like this. Okay, notice how you're just doing 4 sets of 30 seconds. 30 seconds of playing, 30 seconds of rest. 30 seconds of playing, 30 seconds of rest. Now, another thing too that we're going to do is if you can't complete the full 30 seconds on, you know, your 3rd and 4th times, don't stress it and don't even drop the tempo. All that you're going to do is try to get better the next time. So say on your 3rd rep, you only managed to get 20 seconds before it started turning to crap, right? Well, don't worry, just try to go 25 seconds the next time, and you're going to incrementally get better until you can complete those 4 reps relatively easily and then increase the tempo. Just like you would do if you're going to the gym, right? You don't need to get 12 reps every single time. Maybe on that 3rd set, you get 8. Well, you know, you don't drop the weight, you just try to get 9 the next time you're in the gym. Okay, so that's exercise number 1. Now, for exercise number 2, there's gonna be 3 exercises, but I'm not actually gonna give you exercises because I'm not a huge fan of exercises that are maybe unmusical or that you're never gonna use outside of the practice room. There's a lot of good music out there and a lot of ways that we can start getting into these techniques that are musical right away. So I recommend just practicing songs right away that you're familiar with and that you wanna learn. So I'm going to pick Metallica mainly because they're very synonymous with fast down picking, as well as their songs are so popular. I think everybody knows how most of them go, so it'll communicate well with everyone watching the video. So you can substitute any song in for this though. You don't have to use my example, but we're going to use the fast section for Seek and Destroy. So that's the one that goes like this. And around, we're just going to repeat that. And so I'll put the tab up on the screen for you so that if you don't know how that riff goes, you can figure it out by watching this video. But if you want a full tutorial of that complete song, then click there. I'll also put a link in the description for you so you can find that full tutorial, and then you can just loop that one riff. Okay, so we're going to use that riff for our exercise number 2. Now our practice routine will look like this. The only difference, as you can see, is that for this song excerpt, we're going to play it for a minute. So we're going to do 4 reps of a minute with 30-second breaks. Okay, so once again, just find that tempo where you can complete the first couple of reps relatively easily. You know, you don't make it so ridiculously hard that you can't even complete that first minute. You want to be able to complete that first minute, most of the second at least, and then the 3rd and the 4th you can maybe start struggling with, because we're going to be strict with only giving ourselves that 30 seconds of break, right? So if your arm hasn't fully recovered, you might have a hard time completing those last reps. That's why you want to start low enough where maybe the first one even is easy. Oh, that's easy, maybe I should bump it up, but don't until you know that you can do all 4 of those reps. Okay, and then with our 3rd exercise, I'm going to pick another Metallica song, and we're going to take an excerpt from Master of Puppets. Okay, and that excerpt will be this one. and then it's just gonna go around and around again, okay? So again, I'll put the tab up. As of now, I haven't got a tutorial completed for Master of Puppets yet, so I can't point you to a full song tutorial for that, but you can grab the tab here for that riff that I'm showing you on the screen. And our full practice routine now is going to look like this. So as you can see, we started off with a simple exercise just to get warmed up a little bit and just to get our technique in order. And we started off with 4 sets of 30 seconds. And then we moved on to a song excerpt, which is a minute of playing and then 30 seconds of break. And we did that 4 times. And then we move to a third song excerpt and repeat that 1 minute of playing with 30 seconds of rest. So in total, that's, with the breaks included, I think it's 16 minutes, just over 15 minutes. But, you can complete that in pretty much 15 minutes. So it's a nice short workout for you. So before we wrap up, just a couple of additional thoughts on how you can turn this into an even more advanced routine. If you're looking for even more of a challenge, the easiest parameter to play with is that rest time between reps. Just decrease the rest. Instead of taking that 30-second rest, decrease it to 25, 20, even 15, right? And of course, you could play with any other parameter that you can think of too. Maybe increase your time under tension. Instead of a minute for the playing excerpts, go up to 1.5 minutes, right? So maybe you could even set up a pyramid scheme. Rep 1 is going to be a minute of playing, 30 seconds of rest. Rep 2 would be 1 minute and 15 seconds of playing, 25 seconds of rest. Rep 3 would be 1.5 minutes of playing, 20 seconds of rest, right? You get it. So I'll leave you with those thoughts and just experiment with it and see what works for you. Whatever you feel is advancing your playing at the fastest rate is exactly what you should do. So those are my best tips and practice routine on increasing down picking speed and power and stamina. So if you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe and share it with your friends and come back for more tips, more on the way. I'll see you soon.